gosh. Finally, guys, I've been fighting for my life out here. I have an air conditioning thing. It's good air conditioning, but I don't know how to turn it off because I'm in an old residence hall now. Hopefully it stays off because this is the only time we got, so we're probably gonna speed through this. We're gonna do it as fast as I can. Hey guys, it's Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I said I wanted to do an anime video where I talk about the animes that I liked and really enjoyed. So that's essentially what this video is going to be about. I'm going to talk about all the anime I really enjoyed over the summer. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it before my air conditioning comes back and fucks up everything for me. The first anime I want to talk about, oh my god, I loved this one. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Yona of the Dawn first because this is probably my favorite anime of the summer. It's a shoujo anime, but it's actually a shoujo anime that has good action without like excessive amounts of fan service or any fan service at all. Like, this is an anime that respects women, men, everybody under the sun. I really enjoyed it. So Yona of the Dawn is essentially this anime that follows this girl named Yona, and she is a princess of the kingdom in Japan, and her father becomes murdered by her cousin. So as a result of that, she lived a shelter life before, but no longer can she live that life. She has to flee with her bodyguard Hawk, who is fine as fuck. She has to flee with him and basically find a way to survive because her cousin is trying to kill her, so he has the claim to the throne. In order to survive, she has to find these dragon warriors who are like prophesized in order to protect like the heir to the kingdom, and that's her. So she goes on the journey in order to find these dragons and find a way to survive and eventually figure out what her goal is going to be for the future. Yona of the Dawn, I love it so much just because, well, because of a lot of reasons. For one, the soundtrack is fire. Like, I've already played the opening in one of my vlogs, so let's just add it in again just to emphasize how good it is. Like, it's really good. The opening is good. The OST is good, for one. For another, the character designs are really amazing. Like, Yuna has beautiful red hair and nice ancient clothing. All the dragons have epic character designs. Hawk has a good character design. Well, let's get to like the real meat of the matter, right? So the main reason I really like Yona of the Dawn is because the protagonist herself is very compelling. Yona is this princess, right? She starts off as this very passive character who basically has everything handed to her and isn't used to having to fight for her life or having to survive, really do anything. Nothing has been required of her before her father is killed, and because of that, she ends up having a breakdown. She has to figure out who she wants to be outside of her kingdom, what she wants to do for her kingdom, what it is exactly that's going on within her kingdom. She grows a lot from like this meek passive character to basically this really active character, and those are like some of my favorite examples of character development. And she just like has so much agency in it that I've never witnessed in an anime before. So because of that, I really ended up liking Yona of the Dawn.
Alright, along with that, I just want to add that like throughout the rest of the show, she kind of learns how to fight, and you can tell like it's not like an instant shift to learning how to fight or an instant shift to being a badass, which I appreciate because in most animes it's not necessarily the case. I really appreciate Yona of the Dawn for its realism as well.
Along with that, there are also other characters. Like, it's one thing to have the protagonist be a really likable and understandable character, but all of the other characters around her is good as well. Like the 4 dragon warriors, they all have interesting, compelling backstories. Hawk has an interesting, compelling backstory, and he's a good fighter, and he is fine. Yoon has a really interesting, compelling backstory. Yoon is like a medicine boy that they end up finding along the way. All the characters are just incredibly compelling, and like with the storyline, it's just amazing. It's a masterpiece of a show, and no one talks about it. No one talked about it, bro. So if you haven't watched it yet, I would highly recommend. It was really good, and it really will be worth your time. That's the first one. That's my favorite one. It cost me to buy 4 manga volumes. Yes, physical copies. So yeah, I was down bad when watching that show. Next show I want to talk about is Noragami. So Noragami is another sort of shoujo anime. I'd say like it's a fantasy anime, but I wouldn't necessarily call it shonen because it's more of a chill fantasy anime, which I guess is why it's sort of more in the shoujo category. Noragami is this anime about these gods that basically live in present day Japan. They have eternal life and everything, and there's this one god named what's his name again? But is this one god, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but yeah, he's basically the protagonist of the show, and he is a god that doesn't have a temple yet, so he basically has like no form of elevating himself into like a temple-esque god, which is something that defines you as having permanent existence. It makes you like an elite sort of god. So that's what he's chasing chasing after. And there's this girl named Hiri. She's basically the protagonist, the heroine of the story. She ends up running into him while he's doing one of his tasks in order to become an elite god, and she tries to save his life. Really, he didn't need to be saved because he was a god. What? But the gesture causes her to be able to be outside of her body on occasion, so she's kind of half ghost, half living being. And together they go on these adventures in order to, for her, she wants to be able to live a normal life again and be a completely alive being. And the god himself, he wants to become an elite god. So their goals end up aligning to go on these adventures together. And it's just a really sweet story overall. So yeah, origami itself, like the world building isn't the best. The world building isn't necessarily the best, but it's like really compelling. I think the most charming aspect of the show was its comedy. Yeah, it made me laugh like every single episode. So yes, I would recommend origami because it's incredibly watchable because of its humor. And yeah, the romance itself isn't bad as well. I would recommend that one as well. The next anime I want to talk about is The Rising of the Shield Hero. This is one of the animes I watched like really early on in the summer, and it took me by surprise. At first I was like, The Rising of the Shield Hero. Animes, they have like the most blandest, like weirdest names, and it makes you figure like, do I want to watch it, do I not? And, like the ones with the weirdest names actually end up being like really good. Like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, wasn't expecting it. So yeah, Shield Hero also took me off guard. It basically follows the story of this normal guy who is unemployed, in his early 20s, isn't necessarily in school, kind of just living a bum life. And he goes to the library one day and he ends up being sucked into this book, which leads into this fantasy world where there are 4 legendary heroes. There's the shield, spear, arrow, and sword. And he is the shield, which is the most useless hero at the time. And basically, there's prophecy about all of these heroes and like legends about all of these heroes. But the protagonist, the guy that's the shield hero, he has no idea about any of these things. And it turns out the shield hero has like the worst aspect because he's kind of like scorned by the people. So as soon as he gets into this mystery world, despite being part of the 4 heroes that are supposed to save that world, he is scorned. He gets bad luck at every turn, and he ends up just hating the world. Like literally the world he's in, he hates it. He doesn't want to participate in it. As he goes on, he ends up finding like other companions, for example, Reptalia. And from there, he ends up becoming a better human being and kind of just like finding faith in humanity again. I kind of fell off this show, even though it was like really good. I don't know why, I just like stopped watching for some random reason, but I would highly recommend. I think the best part about this show is that like it just takes the normal twist from like an isekai that's like going into another world, being a hero and being just praised and fed amazing things, into like going into another world and you have a worse life than you did in the original one and just following your way into normalcy and like on top again. So yeah, Rising of the Shield Hero is a good twist on like a normal trope, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it, so I would recommend. Next, I want to talk about not the air conditioning. Well, actually, we're gonna keep on talking. Next, I want to talk about Classroom of the Elite. So Classroom of the Elite is a good anime to watch if you are a fan of Kakegurui, right? Okay, it's a high school anime that's borderline thriller, right? So it's like really high stakes. Unlike Kakegurui, it's not a gambling anime. It's an anime that has to do with just figuring out how to find your way in society. And it's a school that fosters like this sort of ruthlessness. So that's why I would say watch Classroom of the Elite. I think the good thing about the series is that every single episode has you on the edge of your seat. Like there's a plot twist at every turn. Let me just say the ultimate plot twist of the show takes you off your feet. I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it, but it's basically like one of those things where it's borderline dystopian. Like if you've watched it 100, it's like going into that school is like going into the middle of the woods and trying to figure out society and figure out how the economy works, and it's just like really high stakes. It's basically making children have to figure out their own societies, which are their own classrooms. Classrooms are duking out in order to become the best society or like the best country or whatever. So yeah, Classroom of the Elite is really good. I'm not sure if I did a good job explaining it, but like it's really amazing. It's totally worth your time. I will say the fan service was borderline like nauseating at certain points, but because the plot itself was so compelling, like you're able to power through. So highly recommend Classroom of the Elite. Next, I want to talk about K, okay? Okay. So K is another really good anime. It actually came out about a decade ago, but somehow it still has some of the best animation I've ever seen in an anime. Like it's amazingly beautiful. Like if there's one thing people say, even if they don't like the show itself, they'll say the graphics itself are amazing. I highly agree, okay? I've watched it, like I watched it at the very end of the summer and I've rewatched it already another time. So yeah, K is amazing. It's basically a story about these 7 kings. The king mantle is passed down through time and it basically started about 100 100 years ago or so, like a while ago. There are 7 kings. There's like a red king, a green king, a silver king. Like there's a lot of kings, right? Essentially, they have supernatural powers if they are given the mantle king, and they have the ability to create these clansmen, which are essentially at that time of the show modern day kings. So they all have their certain roles. They all have their certain characteristics. Like for example, the red king and his clan, they're basically known for violence and loyalty. The blue king is known for like order and having a pure cause. The colorless king is known for chaos, like all those different things. So like each king and each clan has their own like aspects that they follow by and their own rules that they follow by. And yeah, it's basically just the clans duking it out, having their deal with their own issues. There's this mystery character Shiro, who is accused of murder of one of the other clansmen, and that's basically where the plot takes off. And from there, it's a wild ride. Like it's really, really good. I think it's actually one of my favorite animes now. The amount of noise. Anyways, the last one I want to talk about is actually just Gundam Build Fire. The last one I want to talk about is just Gundam Build Fighter, not fires. Gundam Build Fighters. Yes. Gundam Build Fighters, I think the most charming thing about it is that it reminds me of like Saturday morning cartoons I used to watch. Like for some reason it gives me like Beyblade vibes. Gundam Build Fighters is basically about like these kids that go on these tournaments and they fight each other using these toys. They're actually like ginormous robots.
I'm Optimus Prime.
And they battle out that way. That's kind of how it reminds me of Beyblade's little tools, but like they manifest into like bigger beings and they fight each other, and whoever wins kind of just becomes victorious and they gain a lot of clout, things like that. I also didn't end up completely finishing this one just because like its audience is clearly like middle school boys. You can tell this is like a shonen, like it's really for younger guys. I still enjoyed it. It was really, really watchable. It was adorable. The soundtrack was really, really good, but that's not surprising because I think the same person who does the Gundam Build Fighters soundtrack also does the Haikyuu one and also the My Hero one, if I am correct. But anyways, it's one of my favorite composers. And yeah, I think the most compelling thing about it is the fact that it reminds me of Saturday morning cartoons and the relationship between the main two protagonists. One is this princeman of the world, and the other is this ordinary boy who is the son of one of the best Gundam Build Fighters back in the day. It was a really good story. It's just that like it really, really is for middle school boys. Like that's its main audience, but it still was really, really entertaining. Anyways, that wraps up my list. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on all my medias. They're always linked down below, and I will see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye.